Hail Baruch Halevi B and Ariela.
Hi, everybody.
Look who's joined me. I've been coming to you solo, and now I'm not. I'm coming to you with Ariela. So we wanted to share with you a podcast that we just recorded, and we like to give our followers on social media first peek at them. And so we'll be talking. We'll be sharing the podcast in maybe a week or so. But for now, we'd like to talk to you about what it means to be a modern day mystic and still drive carpool.
Right. So what we talked about on the podcast were, this idea that there's mysticism and there's spirituality. And really the idea of mysticism is to co-create and have a relationship with the divine. And spirituality, which is kind of a buzzword, right, is this idea that spirituality is the container that we use to get to the divine, to get to that mystical, magical experience. But so many of us think that mysticism it's secret, right? It is. It really, the word is hidden. And so what we talked about today is this idea that there's so many different ways to a mystical path and so many different ways in our everyday life to get there.
Such an important point. In the work I do with clients, I would say I spend a good amount of time convincing them not to leave their life in order to discover their life, right? Not to leave their responsibilities, their job, their marriage, their whatever. Not that you can't or shouldn't, but if you do it when it's time for the right reasons, not because you're running from something. And a mystic doesn't run from, they move towards. And finding it where you stand, right? Finding the mysticism, that connection. In Kabbalah, it's called devekut, this oneness, this connection where you are. Because my experiences, and we've had, unfortunately, in my family, with my dad, really experienced this firsthand. You can't find it if you leave behind anything or anyone. You have to move towards it. And it's just such an important distinction, I think, for modern day mystics.
I totally agree. And we talk a lot about, and we experience in our lives, this idea of present moment awareness, right? And so there's so many different ways to, like B said, we all have things going on in our lives. We are all human beings with human experiences. And the whole idea of practicing mysticism is to be present with what is here and now, right? There's tools that we can create right inside the laundry room, right? While you're doing laundry, while you're in the carpool. The idea of cleaving to God, really, that's the word devekut in Hebrew, is this idea that it's not really about sitting on a meditation cushion. It is, and that's where it starts, but it is also really about taking your mundane day-to-day things and making them magical, making them mystical. Every single night we have to clean the dishes. Every night we don't have to, but we do. And every night we make dinner. How can that be a more mystical experience?
So the word mysticism comes from this idea of concealment. And, one thing I do also work a lot with people on is realizing that, the good stuff in life is concealed. It was Freud who taught us that the invisible is more important than the visible, and really opened up psychology and appreciation for the hidden parts of who we are. That's really who we are. What you see here, right, is not who I am. It better not be. There's less of me than there was years ago. And I would care about it, except this is not me. This is, as Dr. Wayne Dyer says, the flesh suit, the meat suit. The real me is this hidden piece underneath it is unchanging. And we have to tap into that in ourselves, in other people, in the world, because, the Kabbalists teach that this world, olam in Hebrew, conceals what is hidden, the mysterious, the divine, ne'elam. And our work is to use this world, whether it's nature, whether it's laundry, whether it's making love, whether it's whatever, to go into what's underneath that, to have that experience of intimacy. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Intimacy.
Absolutely. And it's this idea, mysticism is the idea of having a love relationship with the divine. It's a union, it's a co-creation. And, the question I would have if I were not doing this is like, well, how do I get there? How do I do the laundry and feel like I'm in love with the divine? Isn't that the opposite of what we're talking about? Something that you do every single solitary day. how can that be filled with this container of the divine?
Okay, here's an example. I was at Science Museum. I had a few insights. This is a different one that I shared on the podcast. And there was like a toddler, 2 years old, running around, and father was chasing around, exhausted and whatever. And all I wanted was to be that dad, right? Because I loved those that toddler time. Our kids are now all older. And if I could just rewind and go back into that could have been, and probably was, a mystical experience when I'm holding a toddler. I didn't want to, like get arrested. So I didn't pick up the toddler, but I so badly wanted to pick up this toddler and just kind of calm the child down. And I didn't, but I can see how from his vantage point, the dad's vantage point, this is exhausting.
Right.
This is laundry. This is a chore. This is a duty. And from my vantage point, not having that anymore, it just looks so beautifully intimate. What could be in that moment.
And I'll challenge that though, because, right now our youngest is 10, our oldest is 19. So how can you, they say like bigger kids, bigger problems, and we've had plenty, and we have a lot of driving, just like you, if you have teenagers. And so how can we find that magic, that moment, these are, because we have one out of the house. You were happy, but I was pretty much in grief all summer. So like, it is those moments, like the days are long. I remember we had a quote on our fridge when we lived in Iowa when the kids were little. And it was something like, the days are long, but the moments fly by. And it is so true. So part of finding this cleaving to the divine is, number one, is to really get the most out of all the mundane things, all the things that we take for granted, all the carpools we drive and the laundry we fold and the massive amounts of laundry we have upstairs. You know what? The house is going to be messy. And I often choose, we have a joke in our house, the blessings of mismatched socks, because I decided about 10 years ago that everybody's socks would be unmatched, because I didn't have time to figure out whose socks they were.
Or if you did, you'd sacrifice time with them.
Exactly. My biggest moments. Sometimes I get frustrated that I clean the house or I'm doing dishes because I just want to be with them, because I know what's going to happen. Like, they're going to go away to college and then they're out of your house. So that's a whole other story. But this idea of cleaving is co-creation, right? And it is taking all those moments. There's a beautiful teaching that I heard in my shamanic classes, that the body has portals to the divine. That the heart that you see as beating and you take for granted every day, believe me, I know, the heart that you just take for granted that you're alive every single day has a little electrical node in it. And when you just kind of feel to the left of your sternum right here, when you can just kind of meditate on it, you can imagine light coming through there and connecting. That is one of the connections to the divine. The other one is in the back of the head, that is connected from the third eye to the back of the head. So the beautiful thing is that you can use your body, which is always changing, which has got lots of stuff going on. You can use your body as an entryway to the divine. It's to me, it's mind-boggling.
I would just add one last idea, and we really didn't talk about this one on the podcast, and that is, we live in a Amazon world where we just constantly now think in terms of acquiring. I do. I think most of us do. And we can't approach mysticism with that, because if it's about intimacy, you can't force it. You also can't hold on to it, and you have to enjoy it for as long as it comes and goes and not become attached to it. So yesterday I was also at the Science Museum, and we were looking out over these beautiful windows, beautiful downtown Denver, and snow scenery, and these birds just went flying by. And my son Aviva and I just watched them, and we looked at each other with amazement. Mm-hmm. It was like this moment of mystical oneness. And part of me wanted so badly, how can I get that back? Let's do it again. Let's find another one.
Or you want to take a picture of it.
Or take a picture.
Video of it.
And the moment you're taking a picture of something, your child, you're now no longer into me see. You're no longer seeing into the experience. Or as the mystics say, panim, you're no longer lifnei, inside, you're outside. Right. And mysticism is about being inside the experience. So whether it's the birds, whether it's the laundry, whether it's the carpool, whether it's the changing the toddler, whatever it is, can you just make a simple, not so simple shift and go from the outside to the inside?
Beautiful. Yeah. So just in conclusion, you should check out our podcast if you want more on intimacy with the divine. The invitation, and we do this a lot in our work with clients, is to help people find the still small voice. And I love this idea in a busy world, whether we're post-COVID or in COVID or pre-COVID or whatever we're in. The idea is that we all live in a really loud world, a really noisy world. And you have the power within you to turn down the volume outside and turn down the volume inside to all the chatter and all the stuff outside that doesn't resonate anymore. That's not important. And what you can do is you can turn up the volume of this co-creation with the divine by becoming more still, by listening to the sounds of the bird, by listening to the silence. When I go out to the dam and walk my dog, I can hear the bird's wings fly because it's so quiet and I'm up so high. And the first thing I always do is like I touch my phone wanting to grasp the moment, but then I let it go and I just listen. And so in the listening, God will, or the divine will meet you where you are, but you have to come part way. It's a relationship. And you coming part way is to become more still, more silent, and go within.
And to that end, you have a workshop on helping people get quiet.
Thank you. February 26th on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Mountain Time on Zoom until 12. We are going to dive into acquiring a beautiful spiritual toolbox for those of you that want more practices in getting quiet and calming down the chatter, the anxiety and the fear that are untruths, whether you are hearing it from the outside or especially from the inside. And I'm going to give you many tools on how to release those blocks and those beliefs that we have that are blocking the co-creation and development and relationship with the divine. So you will find so many ways to sign up for that. That's coming next week.
And the first Monday of every month.
The first Monday of every month, I have a complimentary healing circle on Zoom at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. So join that. Lots of intuitive guidance. You can ask your deepest questions, prayer, meditation, energy work. And it's all free. So I hope you join us.
You can get all of this and more at mysoulcenter.org. And don't forget to check out The Defiant Spirit, my newest podcast. I'll talk to you then.
Namaste.